Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining IFA. This is our September new member onboarding. This new member onboarding generally happens on the second Thursday of each month at 3:30. Unfortunately, I have an event to run to on Thursday, so we moved it up a day, but it's generally happening this week, and we're really excited to have you on as IFA members, and we hope that this presentation will kind of guide you through the first steps you'll need as a new member and really show you and walk you through all the benefits that you can take advantage of. So just a brief introduction to everyone who's going to be speaking on this call. I'm Spencer, and I will be speaking to kind of the business team, education, networking portion of IFA. And my colleague Brittany is specifically going to speak to becoming a certified franchise executive. That's kind of our premier education program. And then my colleague Jeff with the government relations team will be kind of walking through various bills, especially the FAST Act is probably the most recent one that's come up. And then finally, my colleague Ricky will be walking through everything that our foundation does, as well as our current Open for Opportunity campaign. So just a brief introduction to discuss a little bit about IFA. IFA is the largest and oldest trade association representing franchising. We're also the only trade association that does that on a global basis. So our primary value to our franchisor members is to protect your brand from harmful legislation or regulations on a local, state, and federal level, enhance your brand through education, networking, and promote your brand and the franchising business model as a whole to potential franchisees as well as the general public. If you're a supplier on this call, we're providing you with the opportunity to meet face-to-face and really connect with potential franchisor clients. We have over 300 different verticals that are part of IFA. So one of the cool things about IFA as a trade association, most trade associations represent an industry. We represent a whole entire business model. So we've got a ton of different industries that are part of our association. And then finally, we have nearing 1,200 franchisor brands now, 550 supplier members, and of course, our franchisee members. This is kind of optional, but if you do have franchisees, would love to connect with them and get them engaged with IFA, especially in our grassroots government relations work. This is just an overview of our member profile. So roughly a quarter of our members are in the early stages of franchising, less than 10 units. And they primarily derive value from education, networking. One of the great things about IFA is you don't have to recreate the wheel if you're just starting out franchising. Our emerging brands also here for education, but also looking for lead generation opportunities, promotional opportunities. And then as you get to our larger brands, they're really here for us to represent them in front of Congress and at various legislative bodies. If you have anyone in development, operations, C-suite, marketing, legal within your franchise organization, we have programs and learning opportunities for all of them. So I always encourage you to sign up as many people as you can. There's no limit on the number of contacts that you have as an IFA member. It's just done by company. So there's really nothing to lose if you sign up a few more people from your company, and you'll really get more benefit out of IFA. So with all that being said, Jeff, I'm going to let you kind of kick this presentation off.
Sure. Thanks, Spencer. Afternoon, everybody. And off the bat, thank you for your membership. We appreciate it. We look forward to working with all of you as you explore IFA and understand everything that we do for you. As Spencer mentioned, Jeff Hanscom, I run our state and local government relations activities. So anything that's happening in Sacramento to Austin, Texas, or New York City, that is my particular role with the association. It's hard to believe I will be celebrating my 8-year anniversary in November. Hard to know where his time has gone. But this is the rest of the team. Mike Layman heads up our government relations efforts and oversees both our state, federal, and local practices. We've got lobbyists, like I said, like myself, on the federal side, and then our grassroots and FranPack efforts are handled with Erica, Paul, and Anna. Go ahead, Spencer. So what does GR do, or government relations? We are basically the shield and the sword, and within franchising, right? But we like to think we do all three arms of protecting, enhancing, and promoting your brand. We do everything we can to advocate for good policy and against bad policy at all levels of government. So whether it's here in Washington, D.C., and hopefully some of you are going to be joining us in Washington, D.C. for next month's, later this month's Franchise Action Network annual meeting in Washington. That's our big fly-in event of the year. So hopefully look forward to meeting some of you in person there. And that'll be an opportunity for folks to meet with their members of Congress, meet with their senators, advocate for the business model. But like I said, we do this at all levels of government, whether it's federal, state, or local. But our job as a government relations is to protect, first and foremost, to protect the business model from any potential legislative threats, but also promoting the business model through advocating for good policy. Go ahead, Spencer. Some of the tools in the government relations toolbox, you heard Spencer mention getting your franchisees engaged in our grassroots activity. I'll touch on that in a second. Grassroots and grass tops are kind of two big buckets for us. And again, for those of you who are new to trade association, some of these terms may not be familiar, but grassroots is really a tool, a big tool in our toolbox when we're advocating with legislators and policymakers. And that really involves engaging your franchisees across the country. Our Franchise Action Network is built, and specifically the specific role of that group is to advocate, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, but would just encourage their engagement there, because when we go and talk to lawmakers as lobbyists, it helps to have a messenger with us who is in fact a local business owner. When they hear the story from those people, it really just resonates that much more thoroughly with policymakers. Grass tops advocacy is similar to grassroots, but instead of engaging the franchisees, we're engaging more of a C-suite type environment. So maybe your company, your brand is headquartered in a specific legislative district, a specific state, where your CEO, your CFO, or whoever may have a relationship that we can to use to advocate for or against particular policies. FranPack is our political action committee. Again, for those familiar with government relations activities, that is what we use to help support federal candidates, and in certain instances, state candidates that we believe support franchising. FranPack is built by donations and contributions from individuals, so it's not corporate checks, but that's something that if you're interested in supporting FranPack, happy to have a conversation with you, and I connect you with my colleague Anna, who can talk you all through that. We are constantly running public awareness campaigns, power of brands, or more recently, and I'm sure Ricky will talk about this during her portion, is the Open for Opportunity campaign, where we have been basically highlighting the power of franchising on basically a roadshow over the past 6-8 more months than that. But this is we do a number of these types of activities, but really all of this is to drive awareness about the good that franchising can do from an entrepreneurial perspective in various communities. Direct lobbying, that's the old house of cards aspect of what we do, right? That's meeting with policymakers at the state and federal level, basically just like I said, advocating for franchising, explaining legislative priorities for us. We've been doing plenty of that at the state and federal level recently, and I'll touch on that in a second. Obviously, media engagement, that's another big part of what we do in conjunction with our communications team. Some of you, depending on how closely you follow media and franchise issues, there have been some big ones of recent note, most focused right now on California. And key messaging is just, again, another tool in our toolbox about how we advocate for franchising with various legislators at the state and federal level. Go ahead, Spencer. So it's just a plug for the Franchise Action Network. Again, this is a way that your franchisees, or if you are a franchisee, how you can get engaged with us and help us at various efforts. We call on the Franchise Action Network constantly at the state and federal level. And it's really just a way for us to communicate with franchisees, telling them what's going on where they are. and help them get engaged. So it's really just as simple as texting FAN to 52886. We promise not to bombard you with stuff, but really only call on folks when we need them. And I can't emphasize enough the power of the franchisee voice in our advocacy activities. Go ahead, Spencer. And this is just a quick, kind of what we do and why we exist. And it's hard to, we're still talking about PPP and COVID, even though it seems like we're through that. But, if you kind of rewind, 18 months ago when PPP was getting put together, and, obviously countless franchisees across the country relied on PPP to keep their businesses afloat, keep the doors open, franchisors too. All of that said to indicate when that program was being put together, IFA had a seat at that table, and but for IFA government relations engagement, franchisees and franchise brands may almost certainly would have been excluded from eligibility in PPP. So that's just a snapshot of what we do and to help protect and promote the business model. These are a bunch of other kind of pat on the backs for why we exist as a government relations department. But we are constantly working at all levels of government on behalf of the business model. Whether it's defeating bad franchise bills in places like California and Oregon and Washington, promoting good ones in other states. Like I said, the PPP stuff, bipartisan engagement with the Federal Trade Commission as they review their franchise rule. Wherever something from a legislative or regulatory perspective can touch or impact the franchise model, we'll be engaged on it. Go ahead, Spencer. And then 2022, I should probably update this next month for 2023. It's hard to believe, but there have been some big issues going on. At the federal level, the Protect Right to Organize, or PRO Act, has been kind of stalled in Congress with the partisan makeup that we have right now. But the PRO Act would be very detrimental to the franchise business model. It basically codification of joint employment liability and a whole host of other things. The FAST Act has been a really big one in the news recently. And when Spencer isn't pulling me into an hour-long new member presentation, I'm basically just focused on California. The FAST Act, for those, was unfortunately just signed into law by Governor Newsom, or signed by Governor Newsom, I should say, on Labor Day, so this past Monday. We have been fighting tirelessly against the FAST Act in conjunction with coalition partners, California Restaurant Association. A number of our brands have been helping to steer that effort. That was a big one for us. And it's something that applies to the quick service and counter service restaurant space, and something that we're going to continue to engage in a little bit of a different phase. But that's a fundamental issue for us. Joint employer rule, that's top of mind, as the National Labor Relations Board just published its intent to create a new joint employer rule, which could have pretty serious ramifications for the franchise business model. We will be engaged every step of the way in that process. Equitable treatment of franchisees, really, that's just us when we work to make sure that franchisees are in fact treated as local small business owners, which doesn't happen as easily as one may think at the state and local and federal level. But these are just various policy challenges. I mean, it's safe to say that policy challenges will continue to exist no matter what the administration is here in Washington or what the administrations are in the states, which is good for us. It gives us some job security. But at the same time, there are no shortage of issues that we work on behalf of the business model. Go ahead, Spencer. I think that's my last one. Yeah, I will, as Spencer mentioned, I've got another thing I've got to jump to here in about 13 minutes, but if folks have questions, they can drop them in the chat and I can answer them, or if I'm not here, you can drop them in the chat and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But thanks for your membership and look forward to working with you guys.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks for letting me pull you into these every month. So this is just kind of an overall value snapshot of the education, digital ecosystem, and networking opportunities with IFA, and we'll kind of go in depth on each of these segments in the next few slides. So easiest way to get involved with IFA is to join a committee. And I have a specific slide on the Franchise Business Network, but also the Women's Franchise Network. These are local networking affiliates that we have throughout the country. The FBN and the WFN also meet virtually. The WFN meets every week, Wednesday at noon, and the Franchise Business Network meets quarterly, and they discuss various relevant topics. And it's just a great way to, whether you can make one in person, at one of the 33 different FBN locations, or if you can only make the virtual ones, it's a great opportunity for you to network and meet other people in the franchise space. And then there are also a ton of other committees that you can get involved in. And even if membership is more closed, like say the supplier forum, most of these forums and committees do have various networking events. So if there is any interest in a specific committee, I would encourage you to reach out to me, and I'm happy to connect you with the staff liaison or pass along the meeting information that you might need for them. So this is kind of just highlighting, the franchisor forum has 50-minute calls every month, and then the supplier forum meets with all suppliers bi-monthly with a workshop. If you want some more one-on-one networking and really mentoring, the friendship program is probably for you. We have a great set of mentors, most of whom have been here, 10 plus years with IFA, and they'll meet with you quarterly and kind of walk you through not only your IFA membership, but also, someone to bounce ideas off of as you get your franchise off the ground, or if you're a supplier, how to kind of work the franchise system and get new clients and their experience with IFA. So once again, I'm the main contact on this. So if you would like to get a mentor to do some one-on-one mentorship with, I'm happy to connect you to someone there. And so the big thing with IFA membership are our meetings, and the biggest meeting that we have is the IFA Annual Convention. This is actually the biggest event in franchising. The next largest event has about 1,500 attendees. So at the IFA Annual Convention, we have 4,000 attendees and 8 different education tracks that are running simultaneously throughout your 4 days at the conference. This is really kind of franchising's premier event. I definitely think, it's not a must attend, but it's pretty close to a must attend. I think that this is a really great event, and I strongly encourage you to come out if you're able to. We'll be opening up registration for the annual convention in a couple weeks. I recommend, if you're an emerging franchise, registering early. We have an emerging franchisor boot camp that typically has limited spots available. The boot camps are kind of all first come, first serve. And they're a little bit more like workshops rather than just an education session where, there's a presentation and then there's Q&A. So definitely recommend, as soon as you get a chance, to register for that as it's opening. These other events, we really take our education tracks and we split them up into various smaller events. So think hundreds rather than thousands. So, and I'll just walk through these with you briefly. The IFA Leadership and Franchise Action Network Annual Meeting is our Washington fly-in, lobby day, meet your congressman. The Franchise Leadership and Development Conference is for development folks. Emerging Franchisor Conference is for people that have been franchising for less than 5 years or have less than 100 units. And then we have our Legal Symposium, and the IBA IFA Joint Conference is really for people that are looking to franchise internationally. You'll also notice these MFB expos. So whereas our other events, the primary attendee would be the franchisor, at these expos, the franchisor is the primary exhibitor and potential franchisees are the ones that are the primary attendees. So IFA members do get a 7% discount for exhibiting at these, and this is another kind of value where you can promote yourself to potential franchisees. Franchise business networks I mentioned earlier, but these are just some of the locations that we have where we have active chapters that are meeting locally. Typically, they will either meet twice a year or 4 times a year, depending on how active the chapter is and how many people are attending. Your CFE, Certified Franchise Executive Program, I'm going to turn this over to Brittany, and she's going to say a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Spencer. Hello, everyone. As Spencer mentioned, my name is Brittany, and I am representing the education side of IFA. I am the manager of certification programs, and I primarily manage our certified franchise executive program, which is currently the only certification program offered through IFA. I do see some familiar names, although I can't see everyone's faces, but I do see some familiar names of people who are either in the CFE program or who are already CFEs. So the Certified Franchise Executive Program, as I mentioned, is currently the only certification program offered through IFA, and it has been around for 30 years. As mentioned on screen, it is a symbol of leadership and accomplishment throughout the franchise community. We have a number of different members and stakeholders who pursue this certification for various reasons. One of those reasons may be professional development, which is the core of our program. CFE candidates as well as CFEs are able to take professional development courses, as well as attend events with learning objectives to earn credits toward their CFE. Candidates also pursue the CFE program for the credential itself. It is a credential that is a symbol of leadership and accomplishment throughout the franchise community. So there are a number of individuals in this industry that recognize the CFE, and companies actually strongly recommend the CFE for candidates who are interested in developing their franchise management skills or taking courses in business management or leadership. Another reason why candidates may pursue the CFE is for peer networking, just being able to network with other CFE candidates or CFEs in the same industry as you. One of the benefits of pursuing the CFE program as an IFA member is the IFA membership discount. We do offer about a 45% discount on the application fee. So instead of the $875 standard CFE application fee, it would be $475 to apply and enroll in the program. And then we also offer discounted rates on the required courses, such as our required FranGuard course, which is a legal and compliance course, as well as the final exam. Spencer, can you switch to the next slide? For those who are interested in learning a little bit more about the CFE program, we do hold monthly CFE welcome webinars. Is typically held on the 4th Wednesday of each month. So our next one will be on September 28th, which is Wednesday, September 28th at 1 o'clock. It's a 60-minute intro session where I will walk you through the entire program requirements, as well as discuss the onboarding process, discuss CFE benefits, as well as opportunities to earn credits. A lot of the events that Spencer mentioned on the previous slide also counts toward the CFE requirements. So for attending events such as expos, as well as conferences, are opportunities to earn credits that would count toward your CFE designation. And if you are unable to join us for the CFE welcome webinar, feel free to reach out to me at cfe@franchise.org. Whether you are a CFE candidate or a CFE looking either to enroll in the program, or if you're a CFE looking to renew, feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to assist you with that process.
Thanks, Brittany. So next up, we're pivoting a little bit, but this is really the advertising and sponsorship section. So both suppliers and franchisors can advertise. Obviously, if you're a supplier, you're advertising to the franchisors, and if you're a franchisor, you're advertising to potential leads. So we have both programs and pretty substantial media kits on both, you know, whether you want to advertise on our website, be a featured result, advertise in a newsletter, do a direct mail campaign. All of those are really options. And then suppliers also get the opportunity to either sponsor or exhibit at our events. There are exhibits at the Franchise Leadership and Development Conference, as well as the IFA Annual Convention, and then all of our events have the opportunity to sponsor. So if you're interested in any of those opportunities, my colleague Carly or Lynette can help you, and I'm happy to connect you with either one of them. So this is just kind of a summary. I think that we discussed most of this, but I did also want to mention, as an IFA member, if you go to community.franchise.org, you do have the opportunity to view all past webinars that we have, and we've produced over 270 since the beginning of COVID. So there's a lot of educational resources that you can take advantage of on that site. And if you have any trouble logging in, once again, happy to help. Preferred vendors. So IFA has 4 preferred vendors. These are all vendors that have gone through an RFP process and can help you out with various things. So we have Paychex, Franchise Payment Networks, Answer Connect, and our newest preferred vendor is Benetrends. If you have any questions about those companies, I'm happy to connect you with them as well. This is just a brief overview, and I won't go through everyone, but we have a ton of people working to create member value on IFA's business team. And then we also have IFA's marketing and communications team as well. And these are just some key contacts in case you have some other questions about specific areas of IFA. So without further ado, going to turn this over to Ricky.
Thanks, Spencer. Great to see everybody, and welcome to the IFA, or for those of you who have been members and are just dialing back in to get an update and a refresher on your member benefits. It's great to see you. As Jeff and Brittany and Spencer have all said, main thing we want to do is connect with each of you and help you get the most out of your membership and learn about the work that we're doing and how you can get plugged in and add value to, your brand, your company, franchising in general. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the IFA Foundation first. The IFA Foundation is part of the IFA family. We are the nonprofit C3 arm of franchising and the IFA. The best way I explain it is, what was crystal clear to me when I came over to the IFA in 2018 is you ask anybody what are one of the main things that we need to do on behalf of franchising, and almost everybody would universally say, people need to understand it more, and they need to understand that it's a force for good in communities. So, we just need to raise awareness. So that's a big part of what the foundation is doing on behalf of the IFA and the franchising community. We are raising awareness of the franchise business model and educating people about its positive impact in communities, toward the workforce, and you name it. And we focus in 4 key areas in particular, and we'll talk about how that intersects. We focus on raising awareness and getting ownership increased among the veteran community, diversity, equity, and inclusion, so underrepresented communities, in community engagement and philanthropy, as well as research and workforce. A lot of people don't necessarily understand that jobs and franchises are good paying jobs and that they are career path opportunities. And so we're kind of part of that whole educational infrastructure to reach out to the general public, to those who are thinking about getting into franchising, toward a lot of local nonprofit organizations, et cetera, who are working with entrepreneurs and small business entities, as well as our counterparts on the IFA side. And we're all one big IFA family who are reaching out to educate stakeholders in Washington, D.C., state capitals, community leaders, you name it, who all really need to understand franchising because lots of times there are a lot of misconceptions about it. So, we're going to tell you a little bit about each of the programs we have within it. So one of the first ones, probably the most familiar to most people in the IFA so far, is our Vet Friend program. So I mentioned that veterans is one of our pillars. One of the things we all, I think, who intersected with veterans and franchising know that veterans are good for franchising. Franchising is good for veterans. So many of them who are transitioning out of the service or military connected families, they understand operational procedures, they understand playbooks, and they're looking for ways to apply their skills and looking for small business opportunities. They are also very community driven, and franchising is such a family friendly and oriented, a community oriented business opportunity that there's just a really great connection and blend there. So Vet Friends sits right in the middle of trying to reach out and connect with opportunity-seeking veterans, military-connected spouses and families, those transitioning out of service, those who've been out of service for a while, and making sure that they are aware of franchising as a career development opportunity or an ownership opportunity for them. We do that primarily through the vetfriend.org website. So that's kind of like our home, our online home, where we are trying to connect our brands. So those who are in the IFA family and are also members of VetFran, and you join VetFran if you've been running franchise systems for 3 or more years, you have a certain number of locations that are open, and then you provide a discount or incentive or support to veterans in their franchise fee and getting into the franchise brand. So the vetfriend.org website is looking to connect opportunity-seeking veterans and military-connected spouses to our amazing brands who are looking for veterans to join their veteran system. Just in the past year alone, our web traffic has grown by already 1,000 a month. So we get 6,000 unique visitors each month to this website of people who are coming in to learn about franchising. They are looking for brands, who are looking for veterans. And so I think one of my calls to action and takeaways for everybody who's on this call, if your company is looking for veterans, if you provide a discount to veterans off franchise fees or getting them involved in their system, you should be reaching out to Eric on our team here and just talking with him, making sure that your VetFriend profile is up to date. If you're already a member, consider a premium membership so that you can get increased exposure and connection with opportunity seekers. Sure, even contact information is up to date, because as these folks are coming in, we're connecting them to your franchise development sites. And just in general, we want to hear about the work that you are doing with veterans. We like to profile that. We like to share stories about that. And we like to hear about our veterans who are involved in franchising. So if we can jump to the next one here, Spencer, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I think Diversity Institute is next up. Yes. So, veterans being pillar number one. Our work in diversity is our second pillar that we work on within the foundation. Same as in the veteran space, we are wanting to help members who meet their diversity, equity, and inclusion goals by reaching out to opportunity seekers from underrepresented communities, women, you name it, to, again, raise awareness of the franchise business model, help them think about ways to problem solve challenges that might be barriers to getting them into franchising, and just providing a lot of education and support in how to do that. That's what Diversity Institute does in particular. And then similar to VetFran, we sit in between working with and educating our members and those in the IFA community who need to understand what are the challenges that communities are facing regarding accessing capital, for instance. What can you do as brands? What are different alternatives? How can you be supportive? What are other brands doing to meet their diversity, equity, and inclusion goals? And then also working with opportunity seekers and reaching out to anyone in any organization that we can connect with that services underrepresented communities, and talking about entrepreneurship and small business ownership, and making sure that franchising is part of that conversation. So for instance, we are increasingly partnering with historically Black colleges and universities and finding ways to provide education about franchising there. We are working with diverse chambers and the chambers of commerce as we are in some of our different in-market roadshow stops, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So we really just want to be ambassadors on behalf of franchising. Other ways we do that, and a really great way for members and new members to get involved. We are launching we have a number of affinity groups. We have the Black Franchise Leadership Council, we have the Pride Council for the LGBTQ community, and we have the Hispanic Latino Franchise Leadership Council, and I'm sure more to come. So each of these communities has a chair from within our membership, and the goal is to increase networking, information share, education out to opportunity seekers and to members as well, to help talk about ways that we can support entrepreneurship, increase it, and and work on our own diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives within franchising. So I'd encourage everybody, if you are interested in learning more about any of those programs, reach out to David Smith, who is on our team here, and we're going to be launching a number of new initiatives that are coming forward too in the coming year. So let's jump to the next one here, Spencer. So our third pillar is community and philanthropic engagement. There isn't a franchising story that I've heard yet that doesn't have a strong focus about how local franchisees and owners, and then the brands who support them are deeply driven to support their communities, both through their philanthropic efforts, to their giveaways that they do, food that they provide, hours of service and volunteer hours that they do. So a big part of what franchising gives back does is to help make sure that stakeholders and the general public understand this. That's what franchising is really about. It's about how involved in communities our franchise brands are. So we're trying to tell that story. So we want to hear, so a call to action for what can you do as a new member? Tell us what you are doing for your give back programs in your community. Part of our charter is an educational entity, is to help make sure other brands are learning and applying those ideas so that we can, again, in aggregate, do more good for the communities in which we live and work. And another piece about what we are doing in the IFA world is finding ways to do our own strategic philanthropy. We believe in veterans, we believe in diversity, we believe in community and engagement. So we're working with a lot of nonprofit partners, and in our opportunities to reach out to veterans, we're doing service projects that are also in support of veterans. So at convention that Spencer was talking about, and I hope you all come, we do hands-on service projects while we are at convention, and hopefully with an increasing numbers at other IFA related events, which will give you opportunities to do service related to franchising and help people understand how we're really great contributors to the communities around us. So let's jump to the next one. And I think what I'm going to do here is we're going to start talking about open for opportunity. So Jeff mentioned this earlier when he was talking about some of the campaigns that we're doing at IFA. And I'm going to tie together how this work that we do in veterans, diversity, community, and workforce comes to be a big part of this. What we believe is very important for us to do as being your trade association and raising awareness and educating people about franchising is we want people to understand what we're for and what are some of the positive impacts and contributions we have, so that when Jeff and the GR team are out and fighting and protecting the business model, people understand that there's what that is wrapped up into, what kind of implications that has. So our Open for Opportunity campaign is very much, it is focused on veterans, diversity, workforce, and community, where we are helping to make sure people understand the stories that is truly the heart of franchising. If you go to openforopportunity.com, you'll see what I'm talking about. There are stories from our amazing franchisees talking about, how franchising, if not for franchising, they would not have been able to experience these things in their life, what franchising means to them, how it helps them employ people, how they give back to their communities. But we also know that it's not just about the stories. First, you got to engage people with the heart to get them open to listening to you. Then you follow up with the data and the statistics. So we have a lot of research that the foundation was running in conjunction with the IFA that demonstrates that franchising is a positive contributor to local communities. For instance, in the diversity space, that Black-owned franchises earn 2.2 times more than Black-owned non-franchise businesses. And that's a pretty important story point and data point that we want people to understand about why franchising is powerful. So we put that data, we put it with the stories, and that we hope is what is something that really helps people to understand what franchising is really all about. Not trying to say that we're perfect, but saying that we're trying to be good actors in moving these challenges forward. And so if we can jump to the next slide here, Spencer. I think one of the things that Jeff mentioned that we do, so we mentioned the storytelling, we try and put this out in social, we're putting all of this out in our communications channels, but then the way that we're kind of bringing it to life is, as Jeff mentioned, a roadshow. We've gone, I think I've kind of lost count of the number of barnstorming stops that we have made across the United States, where we go in market, listening and connecting with local partners, connecting with the local chambers, with the local universities, with the entrepreneurship groups, and with our franchisees, and bringing our story to them in the hopes that we can start a dialogue in these communities. One, where we're educating people about franchising, sharing stories and successes about what's going on, but then also having mutual conversations, talking about challenges and how we can all work together to increase entrepreneurship and ownership. How can we address challenges to accessing capital and opportunity? And we are having these amazing conversations with all kinds of entities across the United States who are sincerely interested in staying engaged with us to help us connect to their entrepreneurs in market, to hear our stories that we are elevating, and then helping us all to solve problems. And then our hope is as we keep doing that, when Jeff and the state team and the GR team have to go back to Cal California, Georgia, and other places where, significant policy challenges come up, we have relationships with people who have a more well-rounded understanding of what franchising is all about. So, what is your call to action? How can you all get involved? Again, we'd love to hear member stories. If you have stories of just really amazing franchisees that inspire, who doesn't? So many systems have so many of them. We'd like to really get to know those folks as we increase our outreach to events, as we look to 2023 and we think about what going back to these markets and providing some educational opportunities looks like. How can we, talk to veteran communities or minority communities and help them understand paths forward through franchising? One of the best ways to do that is to put people who have gone through similar journeys in front of them to talk about how they accomplished their process in franchising. And so we're really looking for people who can help us learn about what you're doing, share those stories, and inspire others. So tell us about your story. Come to the events that we are participating in. Let us know what's going on with your veterans and diversity, equity, and inclusion. When Jeff and the grassroots team, reaches out to you to give you opportunities to talk with your members of Congress or meet with any local elected officials, I truly encourage everybody to participate in that and share your own story. It really does have an influence on decision makers when they are making policy related decisions. And just engage with us on social, share information, read our research, and then tell us what else you need to help you make the case in your communities. And then a big part of what we continue to do in the foundation and as part of this is how then can we translate all of it to keep kind of cultivating the pipeline of bringing people into franchising as fans and advocates, and hopefully they become employees, staff, future entrepreneurs moving forward. So, is that the last of my slides here, Spencer? Do I have one more that I need to cover?
Nope, that's the last one.
Fantastic. So I am happy to turn it back over to Spencer, and any questions I am happy to address, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Yeah, and I did want to mention one thing that I forgot to mention around the IFA Annual Convention. If you are interested in facilitating a thought leadership roundtable, these are tables where you choose a topic and you're able to kind of share your expertise with other people at the convention. Normally there are about 100 tables in the room and we give them a map, and it's kind of organized chaos and everyone running to a table. But we do have open spots to facilitate tables. If you're a franchisor, a supplier, or a franchisee, we do have availability there. So it's a really great opportunity to share your expertise with other people that are in the franchise community. So I just wanted to end with that. I will stop the recording as soon as I can figure out how to stop it. And I will